Dog around the outside. James Cobb in very brave there. But oh, goodness me. And it's contact between three trying to score. He goes on the brakes as late as possible. There's contact between the two of them. Molly to the cross. Oh, no.
Oh, we got massive carnage.
Side goes wide. Through goes Anthony Harrison. Oh, they spun. The teammates have come together. Mills is through the air. There's contact in the battle for the lead at Indianapolis. McKinzie jumps.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of rapid fire racing action in the Alpha Touring Change Season 16 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly powered by none other than Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography and Design. It is time for round number 7 of 10 and in this round we have made our way all the way to Central America for the Mexico Grand Prix Circuit, also known as the Mexico City Circuit or in full, more formally as the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez. It is a circuit which is proven to be a little bit more than perhaps what it's been nicknamed, and that is of course the Central American Monza. When you look at the circuit layout initially, you think well, it's going to be quite similar to Monza. Long straights, condensed corner sequences. However, look behind the scenes and this is a circuit that has a very interesting technical twist. While the higher altitude circuits in the world, it means that around here the air is less dense and therefore on those straights you can afford to run a little bit more rear wing compared to where you would at say Monza and therefore carry even more speed down the straights but also carry even more speed into and through the corners. But for our drivers today, as well as the long straights, they've also got to deal with an eclectic mix of corner sequences. Some of them will feel like chicanes, medium to low speed bends, such as turns 1, 2 and 3. Others, meanwhile, will be fast sweepers back to back and it almost feels as though it's a Scari on steroids, particularly the sweeping section none other than turn 6 all the way through to turn number 10. But for our drivers here, who exactly is going to be smart with the draft, who is going to be brave on the brakes and who may get it absolutely right on strategy, well that's what we're here to find out as they all get set and ready to go racing. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this post-round broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight as we catch up on all the racing action from this round, which took place on Monday, the 16th of February 2026. We're bringing it to you as if it were live on this Tuesday, the 17th of February. That means we do not know who is currently doing well in practice. We're learning as we go, nor do we know what happens in qualifying that's coming up just around the bend, nor what happens in the endurance race, which is also on our schedule for today. In the content you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, part of Paul Walsh Productions, and I will bring you all your racing action as it unfolds over the course of this round, indeed the entirety of the season, as we welcome you to tune in, catching all this racing action on a weekly basis on YouTube at the one and only place you can. That's at youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh Productions there. Now in terms of our schedule for tonight, times in Eastern Standard Time, that's EST or Universal Coordinate Time -5, UTC -5, as we can see in approximately what will be around about 10 minutes time. We're making our way into our qualifying session, 10 minutes in duration, and all the drivers very eager there at 9:15 to try and prove they can put it on pole, although overtaking is not impossible here, indeed we expect plenty of battling action. And speaking of all that action, well, straight after qualifying, we'll make our way to the grid at 9:25 this evening. It will be where all drivers take on the circuit for 45 minutes in an endurance race. Indeed, as rounds begin to run out and points are becoming more precious, who exactly is leading the way as we come to this round? Well, let's give you a recap and tell you the story so far after 6 incredible rounds of racing in the 16th season and our 5-year anniversary special season at that. So as we can see, taking a look back in time then, well, all the way back in time we go to what was February the 9th, because at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, we got to see plenty of brilliant action at the Ontario circuit. First and foremost, at the very front of the field over our 2 25-minute sprint races, we got to see what was the wins being exchanged between none other than Michael Polasek, your defending champion, looking to go for another title this season, and he's gradually making his way towards it, and also none other than Matthew Mayer, who took the win in race number 2. Polasek, he looked very quick over the entire day, although in qualifying it came down to only a 10th between himself and Wojciech Swierdajc, but in race number 2, starting from 13th, Polasek could carve his way through until the point where he could not go any further than second place, as in the end it was for none other than Matthew Mayer, had already pulled through to the lead. He'd been able to break away and put the best part of 5 to 6 seconds between himself and Polasek, and that was the way things would stay. Meanwhile, in the Gamma class, well, the story there was one of mixed fortunes for many, but not quite so for your race 1 winner, who actually put on a brilliant show at Dan McFarlane, who did see in the early stages Mike Almeida, who was your pole sitter, have a slow start, and it was Ian Bertolucci who looked set for the win, but then going on to the last couple of laps, it was all about essentially Dan McFarlane building momentum, and with Bertolucci making a small error, well, it was then, at that point, that it was going to be the opportunity for Dan McFarlane to take the win, and he did not waste it. As for race number 2 there, we got to see a different name at the top, and a first win of the season in Gamma for none other than Zachary Bowman, and also a first overall podium, a 3rd place overall, for what was an absolutely brilliant drive for him after stealing away the lead from John Daniels in the open lap. After John Daniels had an off-track, Zachary Bowman never looked back, and nobody could quite keep up with him, even Major Monserrat. But who will we see in the Gamma class today? Will they take a new winner to the top, or will we see a repeating name? And as for Delta, well, at long last, after the disappointment of Okayama all the way back in round number 3, well, in the rain there of Japan, it all fell apart after an incredible pole lap in qualifying, but for Fred Ridgely, taking an incredible pole position once again at Mosport, he did not squander it the second time, and he made it back-to-back wins, even when Evan Clavio got very close to the back of him right at the end of race number 2, and those were your winners and the big headline stories from round number 6. But here we are today then. It is none other than round number 7. It's an endurance race round, a 45-minute race on the schedule, and we are here in Mexico for the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez, named after the 2 Rodríguez brothers, both races in Formula 1, separated by almost a decade apart in 1972 and 1981. But as all of our drivers get ready to go racing today, well, let's give you an introduction to the circuit in full. And here we can see it all on screen, and this circuit located right within the heart of Mexico City, hence why it is known as the Mexico City Grand Prix circuit, spanning the best part of 2.67 miles or 4.3 kilometers in length, depending on your preference of unit. However, the one thing that stays the same is the layout and the 17 corners within it. Now, as our drivers make the way around here, there's going to be a big challenge, no doubt about it, and the aim of the game around here is essentially to try and be smart with that draft, be brave on the brakes, and try to break away. But as we can see, and a huge thank you to the AlphaTauri Challenge admin team for their wonderful cheat sheet, in terms of the circuit ratings around here, a circuit that we don't have as much experience at compared to most of the circuits on this season schedule, having only arrived in the iRacing simulator as of 2025, of course the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, and we can see that tyre stress very high. This is a very aggressive circuit on tyre wear, given the combinations of corners and also those very heavy braking zones, and that middle sector, the runs of turn 7 through to 11, really overheating those tyres, so our drivers got to be careful, because front tyre wear here today is definitely going to be significant. But as well as that, we've also got plenty of heavy braking zones around here, an incredibly long run down the start-finish straight, where drivers will be heading upwards of 150 miles an hour before they slam onto the anchors, and they need to be careful not to lock up those front brakes, but also to make sure they get themselves stopped in time and on a dime. Also, the same can be said from the run from turn 3 in towards 4, and also the shorter run from turn 11 in towards turn number 12, where you do have the stadium hairpin at turn number 13. As for the overtaking difficulty, well, overtaking around here is not too difficult, but finding the right place to overtake and make your break away from your rivals, that is the difficulty perhaps, and the off-tracks difficulty, meanwhile, quite low around here. There is plenty of runoff should a driver run wide. There's also plenty of grass and plenty of opportunity to rejoin the racing, and the barriers are quite far away, apart from the very tight stadium section towards the end of the lap, particularly as you make your way through turns 13, 14, 15, and 16, where if you make your way to the barriers there, it could all spell doom and gloom. And in terms of pit entry, it runs parallel to the exit the final corner on the inside, so therefore it's a nice and easy pit lane to enter, and it's a very easy pit lane to exit there, given the fact it runs parallel down the start-finish straight. But always our drivers need to be careful of the fact they can't cross the pit line on exit, because of the fact they'll be coming out the pit lane at the best part of what will be approximately 80 miles an hour, whereas cars making their way past them on the racing line will be going past at the best part of 130 to 140 miles an hour, so it's definitely going to be a bit dangerous there. In terms of our overtaking zones, you can see them highlighted in blue on the diagram. Turn number 1 is definitely a prime one, as is the run down towards turn number 4, and also the run into the stadium hairpin at turn number 13, where we open up the inside of a baseball stadium essentially for our drivers to go racing through the middle of it. Indeed, it's a very intriguing layout there, and one that's quite the spectacle on race day. We can also expect the occasional overtake perhaps through the S's at turns 7 through to 11, but that requires bravery and both drivers to be respectful and committed to each other. And of course, sometimes that doesn't always quite work out, but we'll see who can work it out today. But of course, we do have to keep in mind this is a 45-minute endurance race, so therefore, you will need to make places or you'll need to get the job done on strategy. And as for traffic jams, well, there will always be some traffic jams in those heavy braking zones, but otherwise, this circuit, we're definitely still learning it as we go here in the Alpha Touring Challenge. But in terms of rules for today, a quick reminder, as this is an endurance race round. Setup wise, this is an open setup series. Our drivers bring a setup of their choosing to each and every race day session. In the endurance race, we'll see the race commence via standing start. That is a given. Now, drivers must change at least one tyre during the race. They can change one, all of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, however they want, but they must change at least one. And we have seen in some of our previous endurance race rounds, some drivers opt for the single tyre change, particularly at Okayama. Several drivers did that in the wet. Meanwhile, we have also seen in other rounds where drivers have changed both of the front tyres there to give themselves a much more compliant car towards the end of the racing. Now, each driver has one fast repair available should they need to use it, and a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points. Get to 30, they will be disqualified, and meanwhile, all race stewarding shall be conducted post-race. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side, because we don't want to bore you for too long with rules and regulations, and let's bring you up to speed with the championship standings. And coming into this round, start off with the overall Drivers' Championship standings, or the Alpha Championship as it's also known, as we can see after 6 rounds of racing. Michael Polasek right now is the man to beat for Yellow Flag Motorsport and is starting to extract a little bit more of a lead after the win and the second place at the Mosport circuit. However, behind the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver, it's Pennzoil Super Touring's Logan McKinzie, who has returned to second place on 731 points, and whilst he may be the third fastest when you compare him to Polasek and also Swierdowicz, he's definitely the second in the most consistent of point scorers. Micah Hendricks, meanwhile, sits in third place for Croc Promotions, a difficult day in the office last time out, with an 18th place start for race number 1, an 18th place finish for race number 1. He made 0 progress really in that race. However, we got to see the true Micah Hendricks come out in race number 2, and he absolutely roared his way through the field as quickly as he could, and in the end was able to secure a 5th place finish there, and it was an incredible performance for the 73 driver. Raymond Hugh, your leading Gamma driver. Well, he may look as though he's leading, but look at the points between him and Dan McFarlane, and what you see there is right now is it's getting very tight between the 2 of them, and you'll see that even more when we go to the Gamma standing shortly, as the Beaver and D's driver right now under major pressure, and the Sim Racing Grid or SRG driver getting closer and closer with each and every race. Wojciech Swierdowicz sat in 6th there for breakfast for dinner. He's still got to build up some big points, but he's got a lot of momentum behind him. Head of John Lauzon for Beaver and D's there, who had a bit of a difficult day in the office. And it could be said for Beaver and D's, they all had a difficult day at Mosport, and therefore he's dropped a little bit of ground, and he's falling back towards Matthew Mayer there, who sits in 8th place, and the Site G driver right now doing everything he can in his arsenal to be able to move forward. John Daniels sits in 9th, just ahead of Zachary Bowman, the Pennzoil Super Touring driver now getting a bit closer there, and you can see the gap between himself and Daniels, only 2 points, and Bowman is only ahead of Cooper Akers based on result countback, and I do believe Cooper Akers has made his way to Mexico today. However, there have been some technical issues with the car, and we're not quite sure if we're going to be seeing the 29 on the racing grid. They've identified several technical issues with the car in practice, I should say, and therefore things are not going quite their way at the moment, so we'll stay tuned to that. But Akers is right now best the rest, ahead of Matt Shepka, with Major Monsavai, Mike Delmeda and Zachary Leopold completing that top 15, and for the Formula Llama driver, it's then only 13 points to your leading Delta driver of Tyler Long. However, some of you may be looking at this and thinking right now, has the gap between Tyler Long and Chris McDonald got tighter? Yes, it has, and you'll see more about that when we come to the Delta standings. But our top 20 being rounded out there by Long, ahead of James Carr, by only the best part there of what is a grand total of 16 points. And behind the breakfast for dinner driver, it's then going to be Gator Racing's Chris McDonald, the second of the Deltas. And then we do have Connor Achitella and Francois Schenk completing your top 20 of the overall Drivers' Championship. And that's how they stand overall. How do they stand exactly in the Gamma class? Well, here we adjust the points, of course, for the Gamma finishing positions, and this is how they all sit right now as they make the way into this round. And the Raymond Tew leads on 678 points, but the gap is now only 10 to Dan McFarlane. It is getting extremely tight between them, and the Sim Racing grid driver right now really is becoming the man with momentum. Because the Raymond Tew, last time out at Mosport, it was only a 4th place finish and a 3rd, a 6th place in qualifying in the class, and it really did seem as though for Beaver and D's the pace was not there. Albeit he did have a good run in the end in race number 2, and he was able to put some early pressure on the Gamma leader of Zachary Bowman, but as other Gamma and Alpha drivers started to come through the field, it all slipped away for Raymond Tew, whereas it didn't for Bowman by comparison, and whereas it went wrong for him, for Dan McFarlane, things looked very bright indeed, because in the end, starting 3rd, took the winning race number 1 with that brilliant late move on Ian Bertolucci, and he was able to get it together right at the close, and then in race number 2, he came on through to take 4th place. It was another solid drive, albeit perhaps not as much ground made as he wanted to, but Dan McFarlane definitely there going all in for the points. We then did see in John Lauzon's instance a very similar story to what was the struggles of none other than his teammate of Raymond Tew, where things didn't go quite right whatsoever, and the Beaver and D's driver right now, despite picking up some points in race number 1, it was a non-finish in race number 2, and therefore now he's got it all to do as he starts to lose the leaders, and Zachary Bowman sits in 4th place for Pennzoil Super Touring moving forward. Cooper Akers there is just behind John Daniels, with John Daniels holding on to 5th, only by a single point for T0 Racing Summit, and he definitely picked up some good points last time out, and the Pennzoil Super Touring driver right there to keep him honest every step of the way. Matt Shepka sits in 7th there for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport. As I've been reliably informed, I should refer to them as see ya, essentially, as you would say see you later, and rather than referring to their full team name all the time. So that's what we're going to try and do today, ladies and gentlemen. But feel free to play a slight, I wouldn't say a drinking game there, because we want to keep this also safe for kids, but you know, whether it's a drinking game with a cup of tea, alternatively, you want to just take count and see how many times I do say Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport instead of see ya, well, do let me know at the end of today's broadcast. Matt Shepka then sits in 7th on 458 points, 6 ahead of Major Montevideo, and then it's Mike de Almeida and Zachary Leopold who round off that top 10, with the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver from Canada in particular not having the happiest day on home soil, despite doing very well in qualifying, taking that pole position. The momentum in the race wasn't quite there by comparison. Outside that top 10, we then have James Carr ahead of Connor Achitella, and it's Damon Mitchell, Ian Bertolucci, who made his return to the grid last time out, the sim racing grid driver from Brazil, really enjoying himself out there, no doubt about it, and Nicholas Sudik, who complete your Gamma standings. As for your Deltas, what you can see here is when we adjust the points specifically for the Delta class, Tyler Long, that lead has been slashed, and the woe only continues because it didn't quite work out in round number 5, and last time out at Mosport for the T0 Racing Ascent driver, he was struggling for pace, whether it was from qualifying, where he qualified 12th in the class, all the way through to the races where he couldn't finish any higher than 9th place, and right now he's got to arrest the form because he already had 2 low scores going into Mosport, and now that means he has consigned the Canadian circuit as one of his scores for the season. He cannot drop any points, and meanwhile, nobody else behind is refusing to drop any points now. Gator Racing's Chris McDonald really on the charge on 404 points, and conversely there, Brianna home a double podium, a 3rd in both races. Now, intriguingly, we looked at Evan Clavio, and you'd be perhaps thinking, based on what you saw on screen last time out, that he should be a lot closer to Chris McDonald. However, there was a shielding decision with regards to a contact he made with another driver in race number 1, and whilst he finished 2nd on the road in class, he was demoted to 14th place in class for a post-race time penalty. So Clavio's progress has actually been halted a little bit for the Sim Racing Grid team, and now Jared Calnins is only 15 points behind, with Calnins enjoying a solid day of racing. Third hour originally with those 2 wins for CRG, now moves into 5th place there, the sister team for Sim Racing Grid, and the 119 driver right now absolutely ecstatic about those performances, and he's leapt his way into 5th. Can he do it again today? Can he potentially close the gap to the top 3? Gaswell Motorsports' Ronald Meffra as well wasn't quite on the pace compared to Watkins Glen, however he did put up plenty of fighting, and then JB DeJu sits behind him by the best part of 21 points. Carl Trust, Zach Hidalgo and Austin Dunbar complete your top 10. The privateer only ahead of Carl Flannery based on result countback, and it's Mark Darnell in 12th place ahead of Jason Lim. And 2 Gator Racing drivers there, close together on the tower, but they're not close together on points, with a sizable 48-point gap between them, and it's a further 15 to none other than Joseph Heath. Gareth McAllister completes your top 15 for Monster Energy Racing, just ahead of his teammate Mitchell Richmeyer by a single point, and there's Sean Gerd ahead of Adrian Fedorowski, with Carl Murray and Corey Lobner completing that Delta top 20. But outside that top 20, we've got plenty of Delta drivers here, but let's quickly take a look through them. Spencer Clark there in 21st place for Sia, ahead of Jonathan Bradford, and then we do have Jason Breen, Angel Manila Soto, and Jeremy Barber completing completing that top 25. And many will be wondering where exactly was Angel Bonilla Soto last time out for Mid-Pack Mafia, because after his win, of course, at Watkins Glen, he was nowhere to be seen on pace last time out in Canada, but hopefully we'll see more of that from him today. Andy Kosick 626 ahead of Lewis Gilbert there by 4 points, and it's equal on points, but count back the difference between Gilbert and Thomas. And then to have Kurt Smith in 29th, just ahead of Nick Bader, with Jalen Kuo, Zach Saunders, Kevin Johnson, Jess Rakowski, Thomas Fancock, Ryan Small, Jacob Wilson, Roger Shank, Noah Namiark, and Aaron Lahr completed that top 40, and 6 points apiece there for Shank, Namiark, and Lahr. But outside the top 40, let's not forget about these guys. Logan Watton is the last driver with points to his name, and yet score any points. Marco Mangano ahead of Patrick Rich, with Tim Driscoll, Andrew Cindes, Cameron DeMunk, and Nolan Pizzola completing the Delta Drivers' Championship. As for the Teams Championship, we won't join these for too much longer. But in your teams, we do see Pennzoil Super Touring leading the way with huge haul points last time out. They have reopened their advantage to the rest of the field, and Yellow Flag Motorsport have finally moved into second place. They have been chasing Beaver and D's, being in with a huge set of points, and Beaver and D's struggles last time out. It does mean that Yellow Flag Motorsport have now moved into second, and can they carry the momentum forward with 4 rounds remaining to bring down the championship leaders? Beaver and D's, meanwhile, they'll be happily in third. They have got a very comfortable 400-point gap to Sim Racing Grid. They are not at risk yet of losing that third place spot, but they will need to refine some form, because Sim Racing Grid meanwhile continue to move forward, getting ahead of Crop Promotions. That's your top 5, and then Breakfast for Dinner in 6th place, they're not too far behind. It's then a quite comfortable 108-point gap to Sia in 7th, ahead of CFG, and then we do have Gator Racing and T0 Racing Ascent completing that top 10, with the T0 Racing Ascent team now at risk of slipping outside the top 10 for the first time this season. Gasparilla Motorsport are on a mission to move forward ahead of T0 Racing Summit, and it's Formula Llama a further what is 136 points behind in 13th, but are comfortable at 66 points ahead of Monster Energy Racing, with 212 Racing and Mid-Pack Mafia completing the standings of those who've got points and yet score any points. Chase Sim Racing, Second Breakfast, Academy Sim Racing, and Problem Child Motorsports. As for the Delta Teams Championship, when we look at this purely on the Delta drivers of the respective entry teams, Gator Racing, they have now taken the lead for the first time this season, and the struggles for T0 Racing Ascent are adding up, and Gator Racing right now will be thinking to themselves that they can potentially now build some key momentum, but could we see the second place team rebound today? If they do not, Gasparilla Motorsport, they are closing on the top 2 quickly, but they are bringing with them Sim Racing Grid, and will Sim Racing Grid sister team of CG there, sitting in 5th, and right now never too far away. Monster Energy Racing, they'd like a shot at the top 5, but they can on 414 points, but then there's a sizable, almost 300-point gap to 212 Racing, with Mid-Pack Mafia and Curb, your enthusiasm of Autosport, or see you there in 9th place, and only 3 points behind, and right now it is a 7-point swing, going either way between Mid-Pack Mafia and 212 Racing, and Sia are right with them, with Crop Promotions, Breakfast for Dinner, and T0 Racing Summit completing those Delta Teams Championship standings. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we finish talking about the standings, well, that set the scene for today, but the best way now to carry things forward, of course, is to go into qualifying. 10 minutes. Who's going to be on pole? Let's find out. So as qualifying begins to get underway, 10 minutes starts to tick away as quickly as that, and all drivers will immediately be very eager to get themselves out the pit lane. Now keep in mind, of course, this is a closed qualifying session, so every driver takes the circuit. In an isolated instance, they have no risk of stepping on another driver's toes, but at the same time as well, they have no ability to use the slipstream of another driver, which you would love to have at a circuit such as this, given the enormity of that long start-finish straight. But as Michael Polasek makes his way on down, well, given the fact that overtaking here is quite possible at most parts of the circuit, how important is qualifying going to be? As we do have our overlay there, just refresh itself, but don't adjust your TV screens. That's on our end, not yours, ladies and gentlemen. That can happen every so often. We do these post-round broadcasts. But as Polasek makes his way around, well, the importance of track position will be thus that you want to be towards the front of the field, because if you lose a pack of cars, then it becomes increasingly difficult for you to be able to catch up to the next group of cars by comparison. Now, this is not, as we said earlier, this is not quite like Monza in the fact whereby you've pretty much got straight and then very limited corner sequences. You have much more elongated corner sequences, so therefore, if you are quick in the corners but slow on the straights, or you just don't have the toe on the straights when you go racing, you can make up time. And that means car form-wise, well, the Hyundai Veloster has proven to be the strongest car this season, and I have been hearing rumours down in the paddock, in fact, that with the setups our drivers are bringing to each and every round, we are actually starting to see the Veloster even outpace the Audi on straight, albeit it's very close between them right now. All these touring cars, of course, are very close on performance. We do believe they all top out the same downforce levels on the car. If everyone's running the same rear wing, they will max out essentially the same top speed or close to it, so therefore it's how they get to that top end speed that's the most important part. And of course, there's also the intrigue here in Mexico, which is because of the high altitude nature of this circuit, and because you have lower air density, you can get away with running more rear wing to achieve a similar top end speed. And it's that gamble strategy with your setup in terms of, do you invest in more rear wing to give yourself the better stability in the corners and sacrifice just a small amount of straight line speed? Could that prove pivotal and valuable? Well, as we see Angel Vanilla Soto make his way out of the final corner to go on to his first flying lap. And let's give you an on-board, ladies and gentlemen, what it's like to deliver a lap around this wonderful circuit. So making his way on down towards what will be turn number 1. It's a long run here for the Mid-Pack Mafia driver, but he gets ready to look for his first braking zone. And right now it's still a long run as he heads upwards of 140 miles an hour here into that first braking zone. On the brakes he'll go. They're braking about 150 meters of quarter apex down to third gear. Now through the right hander into left and taking those sausage curves as high as possible. And now through the right hander before now flat out all the way up towards turn number 4. Making sure to mitigate the understeer and keep it well within track limits. And as he heads on down here right now, building up the speed once again, in upwards of 110 miles an hour as he gets ready for the next braking zone. And Soto here looking comfortable so far in the car. Braking 130 meters from quarter apex down to third gear. Keep it nice and tight and over to the left so that way you can open up turn number 5, roll over the apex curve there, cut it as much as you dare to dream to do so. And now hard on the brakes through turn number 6, the very sharp double apex right hander. But as he exits out now, it's going to be flat out all the way into the SS sequence. Now from low speed bends, we go into a set of sweepers, medium to high speed, using all the entry curve there to open up the left-hander, mount the curb, keep 2 wheels in the white lines, and you'll be okay. As he makes way through the right into left, and now it's much tighter right into left combination here at turns 10 and 11. You can see that in the fact he holds 4th gear, whereas other cars would drop to 3rd, but the Audi has very tight gearing by comparison. Now make his way out of the curvature of 11, and over to the left-hand side he'll hold to get ready for the stadium section. Getting ready to go onto the brakes then, and braking at what will be the start of the entry curve, about 150 meters from apex. Holding 4th gear nice and high there to prevent front wheel spin. Now over to the right hand side, coming into turn 13, slowly through the stadium he goes a bit deep there, offline, understeer, such appeal to part. They can go wide there at turn number 15, she points out. They can cut that curb, and as he makes his way out to the final couple of quarters for Vanilla Soto, well, it's been a very reliable lap, but it's also been a smooth one at that, and smooth normally means quick. And where's that going to put him? It's a 1 minute 53.834. Not quite up there at the moment. We've got more times coming in for our drivers. And well, right now for Vanilla Soto, it might be a degree of improvement is needed. Now, we do need to give a shout out to a newcomer on the grid today of none other than Billy Van Beek, the New Zealand driver, or the Kiwi, as I do believe New Zealanders are also referred to as. He was in the practice session, but unfortunately, I think much alike Cooper Akers, it has been a degree of technical issues have been spotted with his car, his Honda Civic, and therefore we're not going to be seeing him in this qualifying session and potentially not in the race from what I'm hearing in my ear. So a bit of difficulty there. Now, do we have any penalties that we need to consider coming into this round from our previous racing? And the answer is yes, we do. We do have a qualifying ban for John Daniels for 4 penalty points picked up at the Mosport circuit last time out. So you won't see John Daniels in qualifying, but of course we know how quick John Daniels can be. So therefore I wouldn't be surprised if we see him make his way up the order in the racing. But at the very front of the field right now, 5 minutes left in this qualifying session, still plenty of time out there. They're only on their second lap, so at the moment it's been a relatively long lap for our calendar, and it is currently the CG machine of Matthew Mayer, who is absolutely running away with proceedings in qualifying, 2.5 attempts compared to Michael Polasek. Now, in the Honda Civic Type R here, this goes against convention in the right, that the FK8 is normally associated with being a bit slower on the straights, but to be fair, whatever he's lacking on the straights, he's definitely making up for it in the corners here as our Honda driver. And, well, we look forward to seeing whether Mayer can take this pole position, because it would be a very rare pole position where it's not gone to Michael Polasek or Wojciech Swierdowicz after a qualifying session this season. And Mayer did, of course, put together an absolutely brilliant pair of races last time out at the Mosport circuit. Really carved his way through, particularly in race number 2, to take that win overall. And, well, whilst he may be a bit down the points compared to many of his rivals towards the bottom end of the top 10 in the overall championship, I wouldn't be surprised if he feels as though that it is his time to shine. And, well, he could have a last gasp here for a top 3 in the championship come the very end of the season. Doesn't improve on that lap as Wojciech Swierdowicz improves into second place, and Michael Polasek, meanwhile, just a little bit further behind in the number 1 car right now. 400ths is the gap between Swierdowicz and Polasek, and where one is, the other will surely follow. But in Gamma, meanwhile, well, I think you might have heard me saying earlier on about the fact he struggles last time out at Mosport, and I think Beaver and D's have heard me talking about the fact it's been such a difficult day for them in Canada, because right now they are looking to be number 1 and number 2 in the Gamma provisional qualifying, as Logan McKinzie puts himself between Lars Holland T in the timing tower. And meanwhile, in the Delta class, Carl Flannery here, currently the fastest of everybody. Are we seeing the Honda here go very strong today? And well, is it a surprise when you think about the nature of the circuit? Yes, on the straights, but in that middle sector, the Honda will be very good. And also these heavy braking zones, the Honda is normally able to brake around about 10 to 20 meters later if desired on a very aggressive lap compared to its peers. So therefore, the Honda does have some hidden strengths around here. It'll be interesting to see, however, going from qualifying trim to race trim, how suddenly having all the cars on the circuit and all getting the draft off of each other is going to make a difference. And given how close the racing was at Mosport, where many likened it, in fact, in the Canadian circuit to 2 rounds of classic touring action that we absolutely love. I wouldn't be surprised if we see plenty of door-to-door battling into these braking zones, and the Hondas will definitely be at the forefront of trying to make sure they're one step ahead. But Flannery right now, let's not forget that this man is currently provisional Delta pole by only 4 thousandths over Kurt Smith, and then Jared Cowlins is not too far behind. He is a tenth or so behind at the moment. Was that Hidako for close company? And well, 4 names right towards the front of the Delta pile right now. These are not names we normally associate with pole position. Kyle Flannery would be the exception. He has had some great bursts of pace in qualifying over the course of the season, but Kurt Smith, Jared Cowlins and Zach Hidako have not normally been up there. Tyler Long, meanwhile, he's currently 5th fastest ahead of Clavio and Chris McDonald. So while this is going slightly wrong for Long, you would say, in reflection, actually this is peak in terms of what he's able to achieve. And in terms of what Clavio's got to do right now, well, of course, he knows he's got to rebound after the penalty that was awarded to him at Mosport, but the SRG driver right now doing very well here to stay with Long by a 10th, as James Carr launches his way up to 19th place. So Carr there coming across the line, he's completed all of his laps. Micah Hendricks meanwhile comes on through, and what can the Lego brick machine do today? And the answer is going to be 16th as he makes the way down. I didn't realise this, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to Hendricks, real life racer. I do believe he works on Hondas and does some racing of his own as well as on the simulator, and I wouldn't be surprised if a few other drivers here also do some real life racing or track day exhibitionism of their own. Well, I'm sure I'll find out a bit more about them for next time's broadcast, but as he comes on down right now, Micah doing a very good job there to move into 16th, but he knows he's got to work ahead of him if he wants to try and make his way into that top 10. Who else is out there right now looking to get a lap to go? Well, Kevin Johnson, currently your last of your qualified drivers in terms of those who are set to lap. He does have what is 1 minute to go. He's only on his second lap, but I suspect that Johnson right now is not going to be going any further, because when that clock goes to 0, do we have overtime? I think we do today, so he will get this lap together. We'll have to wait and see whether Johnson can move himself off the bottom run of the order. The only driver who will be starting behind him at the moment will be John Daniels, given his qualifying ban, so he'll be starting behind him on the grid, and also Damon Mitchell will start from the pit lane, as Damon Mitchell for this season is changing his car each and every round. And well, we look forward to seeing what Damon Mitchell could do today in his return to the Audi RS3. And I also do wonder what livery he's going to be committing to, just for the simple reason there. Many of you may remember the Kermit the Frog livery on the car last time out. You may have noticed it in one of our rolling photo reel from Glass and Steel Photography and Design in the build-up to today's broadcast. And well, I can tell you one thing, even if the livery may not be, well, let's say it's a Marmite livery. That's the best way to describe it. Some will love it, some may dislike it, and some will be in between. I do love the fact he's going with it, and also the fact he's committing to starting for the pit lane from pretty much most of the races this season with a car change. And to be fair, it's a special season, so why not? But qualified is complete, ladies and gentlemen. And well, time is called, and unfortunately it does mean we don't get to see Kevin Johnson to complete his final lap of qualifying, because overtime was not permitted. But what it does mean, of course, is we now make our way to the grid, and this is how they'll line up for our one and only race today. So taking pole position, it's a return to pole for none other than Matthew Mayer. It's been some time since we've been able to say that, but the CHG driver there starts on pole by the best part of half a tenth over Michael Polasek, who improved at the death of the session to get ahead of Wojciech Swiatek, but he could not find a way to dethrone the man who'll be starting on pole position. So the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver starts in a second, just ahead of breakfast for dinner's Wojciech Swiatek to the tune of 1.5 tenths. Then it's Gamma pole position there for John Nelson for Beaver and Dees, the Canadian driver, putting his best qualifying points of the season in terms of relative times, and also the fact he's on that second row. Then it's going to be Matt Shepka starting in 5th there for Sia, ahead of Logan McKinzie for Pennzoil Super Touring. That's your third row of the grid. And then Raymond Tew, well, he'll be a bit surprised that Shepka improved right at the end of the session, but to be fair, he'll be looking forward to the fights as he tries to move forward there, the Gamma Championship leader. He starts 7th for Beaver and Dees, ahead of Kyle Flannery for Gasparilla Motorsport, who takes the Delta pole position today, and what a great effort from him. But look at the gap between him and Kurt Smith behind. Smith missing out on his first Delta pole position after qualifying by only 3 thousandths. It is looking so tight right now between our Delta drivers. We say it all the time, but it really is the truth. This season, the Delta class is incredibly close. Jared Cowlin starts in 10th place. and completes that top 10 there, only a further half a tenth behind. Outside that top 10 in length, it's going to be Mike de Almeida, the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver, not having the strongest of qualifying performances here today compared to Mosport, but to be fair, to be within arm's reach of the top 10, he'll be very happy with that, and he was only in the end the best part of 200ths faster than your 4th place Delta starter of Zach Hidalgo. Francois Schink will begin this one in 13th place for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, ahead of Tyler Log for TCR Racing Ascent. Then we do have behind the Delta Championship leader, one of his main rivals, Evan Clavio, could only manage 15th today, and he'll be a little bit worried about the fact, is that of a sign of the fact he's now got to fight his way past Long? Can he make it go right? Because Micah Hendricks will be alongside him there for Crop Promotions. And on row number 9, it's going to be Dan McFarlane, the big name, second in the Gamma Championship, but starting in 17th for this one. And the Sim Racing Grid driver will be a bit worried, the fact he started so far away from his rivals, but can he move forward in his Hyundai? Or would he have to find a strategic way to overcome the adversity? If not, Zachary Leopold there will give him company for Formula Lama in 18th place, just ahead of James Carr and Angel Bonilla Soto, with Soto in the end from Impact Mafia, starting just inside the top 27 for the Deltas. He'll be quite pleased with that performance. Then 21st, it's Gareth McAllister with a stronger qualifying performance today for Monster Energy Racing, just ahead of Chris McDonald, who's struggling in qualifying for Gator Racing, starts 22nd or 9th in Delta. He's got a lot of work to do. Major Monsavai, 23rd, not the happiest of qualifying performances for the American driver, but still he'll be joined there on that 12th row grid by Joseph Heath. Ronald Meffo for Gasparilla Motorsport. Where's the pace gone for him? He started in 25th, albeit I suspect we'll see a lot more from him in the race as we normally do. Cole Trost will join him on that 13th row of the grid for T0 Racing Ascent, with Nicholas Sudik and Jason Lin completed off row number 14. And behind the Gator Racing driver, it'll be Fuad originally the superstar of Mosport. Today it's only 29th, but always keep your eyes peeled for the CHG driver, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's targeted a top 10 in class, if not higher. Gator Racing's Mark Donnell will be completing at your top 30, and outside that top 30, we've got a few more rows to go. We do have Austin Dunbar starting 31st ahead of JB DeJoux, with Mitchell Richwire starting 33rd for Monster Energy Racing, just ahead of Corey Lobner. Then it's going to be Jalen Kuo for Midpack Mafia, just ahead of Zachary Bowman for Pennzoil Super Touring. It hasn't gone right at all for him in qualifying. He will have none other than Kevin Johnson starting 37th behind the last of our qualified drivers, and then it will be a back of the grid start for Damon Mitchell, albeit from the pit lane. It should be said for Crop Promotions, his driver who swapped his cars, and we will see that qualifying ban for John Daniels come to life. And sadly, ladies and gentlemen, as much as we would love to see them all agree, Cooper Akers for Pennzoil Super Touring, and also none other than Bille Van Beek. They've both had technical issues with their cars, and they have not been able to get them fixed in qualifying, so we will see them listed on the screen there, but they will not be taking part in this race. We will have a 39-car grid. But without further ado, the grid is set, the lights are going on for the one and only time today. All drivers get ready to go, and as the revs rise, and indeed some smoke pours on those brakes, they're razor hot here in Mexico, and it's lights out, and away we go here for a one and only race today as they charged our way down towards turn of 1. Round number 7 gets the light, and as they do, well, here begins the fight as we see the fanning out behind. But as they all come down, well, it's going to be multiple wide there for so many drivers further back. But as they all build up the speed, we can see 3 wide there in the hunt for 7th place. But at the very front of the field, it's going to be 3 wide as Matthew Mayer defending right to the inside. Wojciech Swedok trying to go around the outside of him, and then it's going to be Michael Polasek tucking it in behind the race leader. But into that braking zone they all go, and as they do, a bit of a squirm there. Oh, that's an Audi going by. That's the Formula Llama car. They're going sideways. Not quite sure what's happened there to Zachary Leopold, but it's going to go round. It all goes very sideways there. A couple of cars onto the grass, and as they all make the way through. All right now, most of the drivers safely on through the opening couple of corners, but onto the grass there. That is none other than, I believe, the machinery of what is, I think that's Dan McFarlane, and Chris McDonald's also been caught up in that, so it's got a roll for them. But meanwhile, it's going right for others as Raymond to you here. Has lost out to Matthew Shepker at the start of the race. Shepker is up into the lead of the Gammas, up into 4th place. It's all happening right now, and well, I believe Angel Bonilla Soto has somehow cut his way across the circuit to be listed at the top of the time tower, and then he goes down. That's a glitch at our end, and as all the drivers make the way through turn 6 in towards Sarah right now. Line astern they go, in towards the SS sequence. This is not a place to go too wide. If you've made ground or not, well, right now you've got to settle with where you are for at least this run of the corners. We'll get yourself set for the next sequence that's coming up at the stadium. But we can see here definitely some chops and changes, some big changes. Jared Cownin's fighting hard here with Francois Schink trying to make a move there for Sia. However, Jared Cownin says to him, no, you can't come past here the Hyundai Elantra, and the Elantra driver right now just holding his ground. Your leader in Delta as well, he's gained ground. He's had a brilliant start to this race. We'll have to see how that exactly happened. Kurt Smith here right now pushing along. Francois Schink trying to say to him, help me out, and meanwhile he's going to be battling here with that Hidalgo. Hidalgo goes side by side with him as they make their way to the braking zone. So does Mighty Almeida. Almeida then backing out on the outside, and as they all roll the way through, that Hidalgo there gets it very close, getting very tasty with none other over the Micah Hendricks, and we'll go through right now. Micah, I should say, and I'm sure we can keep count how many times I butcher his name today, was they roared the way out of turn 17. Into the pit lane has come Kyle Flannery. Now, I wonder where Kyle Flannery's had a jump start. I wonder if that smoke we saw, what was the lights out away we go procedure, that was him getting the jump and then having to slam the brakes back on. And unfortunately, he will have moved out his position as a result. He has served that drive-through penalty that's been awarded to him immediately there. It is a slam dunk penalty. It's done by the automated iRacing shooting system, and we're a very unfortunate one at that for him. The man who did start all the way to the front of the Delta field, well, now it's going to the back of it, but I'm sure we'll see him come through as time goes on. But Ty Long right now, he's trying to fight his way up through as we ride on board here with the Delta Championship leader for TCR Racer Descent. Coming out to turn number 3 and powering his way along at the moment. And in front of him, that is Evan Clavio, who's gained 2 places, whereas Long has not gone forward, nor has he gone back. And behind him is James Carr, one of your Gamma drivers right now, who'd love to take the 15th place off a log. Will he go for it here, coming down in towards turn number 4? The answer is no. So right now, James Carr is going to back off. As in fact, I think James Carr did get to the inside for a brief moment. However, has found out very quickly, being on the inside for turn 4 means you're very wide on the outside for turns 5 and 6, and you don't want to be there whatsoever. Those quick fire direction changes, of course, always serving to keep things interesting in these battling zones. It's not as straightforward as get to the inside and you win. It's more about essentially picking the right side to go on and then committing to the bit all the way through. Well, as all these tries head through the S's again now to single file. As further down the order, well, Kevin Johnson's had a good start to this race and moved up to 35th from what was his back of the grid start, and right now chasing after Zachary Bowman, the man he's been working with to a degree. These two are 2 different classes, but to be fair, I think they're keeping each other firmly in each sight, as we do see a bit of an understeer there for Zachary Bowman, sending it out wide. Mitchell Richmond, meanwhile, he's trying to make some progress versus JB DeJoux, but the problem he's got is Corey Lobner trying to take the place off of him. Here comes Lobner, looking one way then the other. Lobner on the left of your picture in the black and orange Honda, but it's all for naught. There's Mitchell Richmond in the Monster Edgy Racing all-white machine, keeping himself comfortable. Well, as they come through into corner, Damon Mitchell making his way past there. Kevin Johnson, as we are Lobner still fighting here with Richmeyer, trying to go around the outside. Richmeyer parks the car in the middle of the road, but it's a poor exit, and it's going to be Corey Lobner making his way up into 17th place. And now Zachary Bowman trying to come through, but from them back to the front of the field. And after 2 laps of racing, it's Matthew Mayer leading ahead of Wojciech Swierdajc. Then it's a 1.5 second gap to Matthew Shepka, who's currently your Gamma leader. Michael Polasek up the inside there, covering off Raymond Hugh for 4th, with Logan McKinzie in 6th just behind. Then it's John Lauzon in 7th, ahead of Jared Calnin, your Delta leader, with Franz Washing and Mike Almeida completing that top 10. Kurt Smith, meanwhile, best the rest in 11th place, and right now under pressure here from Micah Hendricks, and also trying to put some pressure onto Mike Almeida himself as they get ready to come down to turn number 4. You can see there in the foreground of the camera shot, that's John Lauzon saying hello to Logan McKinzie and saying, just keep in mind I'm still here, I haven't disappeared. But right now they continue to settle their differences, and that's peacefully. I wonder if there will be a bit of violence later on, touring car violence that is, as we do see none other than what is Evan Clavio still having to deal with the fact that Tyler Long is right behind him. As all these drivers bob and weave their way between turns 4 through to 6, we've got a slow running car a little bit further back, and I believe, well, there's the Honda for our originally, who today has changed his car for the rest of the season. So he's used his one car swap, which is entitled to. All drivers are entitled to it. He has gone from his Audi RS3 into what is the Honda Civic Type R FK8. And will that change? Well, right now, I wonder if that's perhaps at the core of why perhaps he did not qualify as well as he should have. And I suspect they get acclimatised to the car. And whilst he would have put the practice in the week, I wouldn't be surprised if the CG driver essentially in the pressure cooker that is qualifying. He's just had to find a little bit more time. But in the race right now, he looks a lot more comfortable. Well, that's what we love to see for the 119 as it makes its way in towards turn number 12. But John Daniels a bit further back here. He's still trying to make his way forward. Daniels has not had the happiest of starts today qualifying. In fact, he had that qualifying ban, but up the inside there, Austin DeMar. That's another smooth move there. Now up into 28th place. 9th for the Gammas right now, but steadily making progress. Drivers battling still continued on, and well, in terms of big stories, we've got a few here in what is the Delta class, particularly Tyler Long, who right now has got James Carr for close company, albeit as close as James Carr can get them, and that Elantra looks a little bit quicker on the straight, even in the draft, and therefore Carr is closing gradually, but I don't think he wants to force the fight out here, because otherwise they will lose time. Although Carr looking to the inside here, does he change tack this time as they come down towards the braking zone? The answer is yes, he does. He goes all in for the move. Now, Long will try and defend this, or will he not? No, he lets it go there through 1, and into 2, he backs off entirely. So I think right now, Ty Long playing the more strategic game, which is I need to work with the guys in front of me rather than work against them, particularly when they're in a different class, because whilst we all score points based on overall positions, he'll be saying to himself, the most valuable ones are the ones he can take off his Delta rivals. As we do see there, Micah Hendricks up the inside of Kurt Smith for Croc Promotions. The breakfast for dinner driver right now having to fall back a little bit, but Smith still second in Delta regardless, and I think still enjoying himself out there. Meanwhile, John Daniels now looking for another move. That's up the inside of Carl Trost. So your number 2 driver here continuing to make headway, as meanwhile making his way backwards, or upwards we should say. Well, Raymond Hughes got backwards slightly because Michael Polasek has now taken fourth off of him. After Tiu tried to get on through the S's initially, but Matt Shepka right now is falling back into the clutch of these guys behind. So it's more the story here that the Gamma field has started to catch up to the man who took the lead on the opening lap. But the Sia driver right now, knowing with Michael Polasek behind him, that is the equivalent of being told that you are David, and this is David versus Goliath, because Michael Polasek, multiple-time champion, 4 in a row, looking to try and make it a 5th this season, and on his way to doing so right now, based on the way the standings are going. However, there's still rounds to go. It's not all set and certain, but Michael Polasek will be wanting to get on through. But as they come out of turn 17 and on to the start finish straight they go again. New fastest lap race, Wojciech Swiatek, a 51.519. So the pace is rapidly coming down for your leaders, but meanwhile Shepka here, the best part of 2 seconds slower. So I think Shepka right now starting to find himself up against a bit of a brick wall in terms of pace, albeit he might have made some mistakes on that previous lap, to be fair. We don't know exactly what, but you can definitely tell the fact that he's not having the happiest laps at the moment, and that is causing the leaders to have some gap. And in terms of the sector where he struggled on that previous lap, it was the final sector where he was the whole, in fact not the final sector, it was the middle sector where he was 1.3 seconds slower. I suspect that Shepka's made a mistake somewhere on that lap, because right now that is not the pace we've seen from him in the first couple of laps by comparison, nor did we in qualifying. But here he comes down towards turn number 4. And Polasek to McKinzie allows on all 3 attempts from car to car to car at this point. And Polasek takes a little look, but that is more just to see what Shepka will do if he starts to probe. A bit further down the order, Damon Mitchell here battling side by side with Zachary Bowman and Carl Flannery, and in the end it's going to be the pair trying to go for his outside to his inside, but coming back for the apex right out of the number 27 driver, he gets his elbows out and says to Carl Flannery, no, you can't come through for Gasparilla Motorsport. And meanwhile Corey Lobner looks at this and thinks to himself, okay, well if it's going wrong for Flannery, then surely I can do it too. Carl Flannery, of course, with that drive-through penalty, we have had it confirmed he had a drive-through, so therefore he's lost out after taking what was that pole position. And with the Delta pole sitter right now, well, he's got to absolutely go hammer and tongs the remainder of this race if he wants to try and recapture anywhere near the lead of the race, albeit I suspect right now a top 10 would definitely be an achievement given how far the gaps are starting to appear in the field. And also how fierce the fighting is further on down. But speaking of fighting here, this is McKinzie versus Lauzon. Going through turn 12 into 13. And now it's going to be Lauzon back on the inside here. McKinzie made the hop over the apex curb. But Lauzon says to him, if you can do it, I can do it too. We're coming out turn 13, it's 14. They keep it clean, they give each other space. And Logan McKinzie right now on that inside. He'll be safe. Albeit to be right aboard the nose here. John Lauzon gets the cut back to the inside. But immediately McKinzie coming across there. And well, now it's going to be a drag race down the start for the straight. Lauzon knowing as much as he wants to pull out the draft, he can't afford to do so yet. He needs to wait. Play the patience game here as Matt Shepka and Raymond Tew are fighting up the road. And as they power the way down towards turn 1, here is Shepka with Tew all over the back of him. Michael Polasek has cleared Shepka off camera. That happened towards the end of the previous lap. And we'll Tew right now pushing him along, and I think deciding not to get too involved there for the risk. Essentially, they push themselves backwards and lose overall positions. Meanwhile, Micah Hendricks up the inside of Mike de Almeida. That's another place gain there for your number 73. Now up into 10th place is Hendricks, making steady progress, but he knows that it's still more to be done here before this race is all said and done. But as the batting calms down for a brief moment, well, as soon as I say that, it does not, of course, as that's going to be Carl Trost up the inside there of the DHL machine of Joseph Heath. And right now, Carl Trost beating the delivery man, but as they roar the way out, I'm sure we'll see Heath trying to deliver a move or two later along, because we do know that Heath definitely, for all the pace he perhaps doesn't have compared to some of his rivals, he does have a very good sense of battling, and that's what you always love to see from the number 71 car. As Jalen Kuo is the next target, and the Mid-Pack Mafia driver right now holding on to 10th place. However, in the 00, understandably, Trost and Heath are looking a little bit quicker, and that Audi is perhaps not quite on the pace compared to some of its rivals here because of the gearing, particularly in the opening sector. Like on the straights, it's definitely a straight line speed demon, but through these corners right now, I can imagine having to hold such a high gear. 4th gear, as we saw the on-board lap with his teammate Danilo Soto earlier on today. All those high gears mean you lose a lot of exit speed compared to the other cars, albeit what you do gain, of course, is better traction on the front wheels because you're not putting as much wheel spin in. Remember, these machines, touring car racing or TCR machines, these machines are front engine, front wheel drive, so the front wheels do all the work, and the rear wheels, meanwhile, get to sit back and relax for the most part, albeit not the rear wheels there of Micah Hendricks that mount the curbs, and in the end having to deal with trying to find some grip as they come down off of the high curbing. And that's Mike Almeida and Kurt Smith making the way back on through. So Hendricks losing out there through the stadium section. And well, now it's going to be chop and change once again. As Zach Hodarko, meanwhile, is watching this eagerly. But meanwhile, at the very front of the field, hold the phone on that one because onto lap 7 we go. And this is a change of gamma lead. That is Tiu drafting his way on past Shepka. And Shepka tucks back in immediately. Looking at my commentator booth window, well, I can hear the sound of it's a Hyundai making its way down the pit lane. That is Major Monsavai coming down. So is Joseph Heath. So they're both deciding to pit early here. We are well within the pit stop window this early on. And it's a 45-minute race here. So understandably, at the moment for our drivers, an early pit stop for an undercut, could it prove valuable? It's a big gamble because, of course, you do gain a lot of time here on the draft on the straight. But if you think you're quicker through the corners and you're losing time, that might be the way to get it done. But meanwhile, we do see Francois Schinck right now looking up the inside there of Cal Nins, the Delta leader, right now reading the world of his own Cal Nins. But of course, he wants his overall places to score some more points. And meanwhile, Schinck says, I want the place too. He's going to go all the way around the outside here. The Sia driver doing a fantastic job of this. It's giving room to play. Now getting ready for the S's sequence here. I think he's got it done. Lovely move from Francois Schinck. That's what we come to always expect from him. And the number 18 driver there getting the job done in another Schinck Classic. But meanwhile, as we make our way a little bit further down the order, Corey Lobner here still fighting with Zachary Bowman and Austin Dunbar behind him. And Mitchell Richmond has lost out since the last time we've taken a look. But we can see the CFR machine right now on a mission to move forward. But we have a mission to go back in time, ladies and gentlemen, because we need to take a look at some of the big moments on the start of the race, including Jared Cal-Nins' epic start. So this is when all our drivers were building up the revs, and there was the jump start. We thought that smoke was from Kyle Flannery. There's your confirmation of his jump start. He tried to reverse the car back slightly there. I think he panicked a little bit afterwards, but once it's done, it's done. You can't think about it anymore. And Jared Cal-Nins, meanwhile, well, on the inside as he made his way down, it was 6 wide for a brief moment there. Zach Hodarko as well. Look at the start that he had in the middle of the road there, but the problem is he then got boxed in behind what was John Lauzon, and as they made the way down, Jared Cal-Nins on the inside, he picked up the perfect start to this race by being on that inside. He had all the space 4 wide under braking, and once they all concertinaed together, he put himself right in the prime position, and he was able to go around the outside there to cover off what was Mike Almeida, and that's how Cal-Nins got that start all said and done. But it wasn't quite the happiest start for every driver out there, as we did see in the end some difficulty for none other than Dan McFarlane. This is what happened to him. Oh, that was a big hit there. That was Zachary Leopold side by side with none other than Benila Soto. And then McFarlane made his way through. We couldn't quite see what happened, but he was turned around there by some contact. I wonder if that was contact with Chris McDonald potentially. And if so, well, I think there's going to be a word to the stewards between those two afterwards. But Chris McDonald getting caught up in that. Can we see the on board from Chris McDonald? I think we can. Here we go. So this was McDonald making his way into the braking zone for Gator Racing. On the inside, constantly chopping and changing back and forth here. And in the end, well, he had to take a race action. No, in fact, Dan McFarlane was turned around there by the wayward car of Zachary Leopold. Can we get Leopold's on board or a perspective of that? I think we might be able to. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a look back. And this is what happened to Zachary Leopold from alternative camera angle. So, 3 wide, and in the end, he was pranged there by looks of things by Benila Soto. That sent him sideways and caused the domino effect. That's what that camera would suggest, but of course, the stewards have plenty more cameras available to them if they do want to take a look back. But without further ado, let's make our way back to your live racing, shall we? And as we do, well, there's still plenty of time to go in this race. We've only completed a third of it so far. 30 minutes still left on the clock. And as soon as we come back, Carl Flannery there's turned around. I'm not quite sure what's happened to Carl Flannery, but we might not get a replay of it, but he's definitely gone backwards there through the S's. I wonder if there's been a degree of contact with somebody else. If not, then it's just gone wrong for him. And well, as we do look here, this is going to be a big move, big send from Mark Darnell at the inside of Damon Mitchell. Mitchell runs wide there, and by running that wide, I wonder if he's picked up an off track and a slowdown, because that is beyond track limits there. And coming all the way through the stadium section right now with JB Dejoux on the back of this, and right now trying to get involved, but he might not be able to do so here as we do see them roaring the way out of the stadium. Kurt Smith, meanwhile, well, he started in second in the Delta class. He's still in second in the Delta class, as Jared Cal-Nins had that monster start by comparison. But Zach Hodarko, well, you can imagine if he would work out a little bit differently, he could be your Delta leader right now. It didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to, but he came so close to be able to take the lead by being in the middle of a 6 wide situation. But the Honda driver right now on the attack versus Smith, and well, looks to the outside. I wonder why, because at the end of the day, with the amount he's riding on the rear bumper there, Smith, you would imagine he's perhaps trying to make a move here. But I wonder if he's trying to give Kurt Smith the benefit of the doubt here and trying to say to him, please just go a little bit faster before I have to try and make a move on you, because he's worried perhaps that if they start fighting, they're going to bring Clavio in, because Clavio is only 4 attempts behind. But Zarko right now is definitely making sure that he's not going to put too much pressure on the breakfast for dinner driver here. as they come through the S's, but you can see, look at the speed. He's well, too much speed there coming through the corner, lose it, almost coming off the curb, and well, praised him too soon perhaps, as in the end that's going to be Clavio coming on through, and Hidalgo just taking a bit too much curb, but up the inside it goes James Carr as well, and the woe continues, because here is Chris McDonald now, looking to make his way on through, and they do say kick a man when he's down, and right now they're all trying to kick him for places. They make the way in towards turn number 12, and around the outside McDonald goes there, so boom, breaks, makes contact to the rear of Carr that sends them both sideways, and then Hidalgo will get those places back, but you can see that James Carr has been able to get the car back straight. Meanwhile, it's got very rolled for the man who tapped him on the rear, and there's going to be contact there between Long and Carr. But Ty Long right now on the inside, they backs off just in the nick of time, and the T0 racer, the scent driver right now. Is he going to peel to the pitch? Yes, he is. Long knows that right now, if he stays in this fight, all he's doing is costing himself time. He's going to get himself out of the battling, which is getting gritty, and they're coming down that start-finish straight. Well, here comes McDonald and Ronald Meffo. Remember what we said on the grid. Ronald Meffo, difficult qualifying session, but never count him out. And right now, Meffo is going to make his way past up into 5th place in Delta. That's on the road, because we do have our pit stop starting to play out here, which will lead to some question marks. But right now, McDonald absolutely on a mission to tear his way through the field, and Ronald Meffo the same. And these two Honda drives, they go too wide into turn 1. Door to door they go in towards turn number 2, and as they come through the left, in towards the right. Well, right now, the number 39 driver here makes his way past, and McDonald knows he can't keep up the fight for too long, otherwise he'll be running out of road and indeed finding those track limits. But from then, we've got to come back to the front, because we haven't talked about these guys for some time, and now we really need to do so, because that's Matthew Mayer, your leader, and right now the CHG driver here trying to keep breakfast at dinners Wojciech Swierdojc behind, but Swierdojc, despite the fact he wasn't quite on the pace in the early stages compared to the Canadian driver, he has now started to catch up, and of course our champion from many a season ago, well, Swierdojc will know what it's like to be in this position where you are the chaser, equal machinery, but perhaps slightly different setup in the car, which is more to the driver's preference, and seeing how best they can tailor the car to how they drive and the circuit they're racing at. And Melio right now, well in fact Mayer there, let's get his name right, holding on for a degree of time. Coming on towards the next lap very shortly. Now, if you are Swierdojc, do you come in early here, or do you simply just try to work with the driver in front? Do you perhaps take the confidence, which is by being this close behind, you can essentially stay with the leader, but what you can also do is a little bit of fuel saving. Now, do keep in mind, our drivers have to change a tyre in the pit lane, so that will really add to their pit time, but also any fuel saving you can do, it may just shorten the pit stop that little bit more. So Swierdojc staying right and firmly in the draft at the moment, and as he looks the inside there versus Mayer, will he think about the move from that far back? The answer is no. Gap of 2 tenths there as they head into the braking zone. He doesn't want to do this on the road, not yet. I think he's happy at the fact they do have a 5-second gap to Michael Polasek. What times is Polasek setting? That's the question. There he is. Well, right now Polasek, his last lap was only 2 tenths quicker by comparison, so Polasek right now not really gaining. However, it should be said that he was able to set the fastest final sector on the previous lap, so Polasek is on a mission to try and close these guys down, but he's got some time to go. As Tyler Long, meanwhile, has left the pit lane, he's had that pit stop, and well, he's dropped all the way down to 27th place overall, or 14th in the Delta class, but the upside is he has bought himself some clear track, because Mitchell Richmeyer's the next car up the road, 12.5 seconds away from him, and I do believe otherwise Long will have some lap down machinery to pass, including none other than Kevin Johnson. That's the first driver he's going to come up to, and Johnson right now running happily in 35th place, 18th overall. He's yet to take a pit stop, I do believe. In fact, I think he has taken his pit stop, but Johnson right now just enjoying himself out there, and we look forward to seeing whether he can make some progress later on in the race. We have also had a pit stop for Shepka. He decided to get himself out of that order with all the gammers towards the very front of the field, so Shepka's early pit stop here may in fact now change the dynamic of this race. It is a long pit lane here, and the amount of time you spend on the pit limiter really does feel like an eternity. So Shepka right now, as much as he is right towards the back of the field, understandably the reality is he could be towards the front of the field on strategy. We'll have to see what is to come. Heading his way on down. Well, meanwhile, we do look a little bit further up the order to Zachary Leopold, who has none other than what is a 3-second gap to Tyler Long, and Major Monspite is 6 seconds behind him. So right now, all these drivers further on down, hoping that strategy is going to be what wins it for them. But back to those who've yet to pit and are spending a long time out on the road, as long as they possibly can. There's no risk of rain here today. We've got brilliant blue skies with the occasional bit of interrupting cloud. Well, as we do see none other than Kurt Smith making his way onwards. We show you that weather on the right-hand side of your screen. Quite a nice track temperature here today, and an ambient of 24 degrees centigrade. Track temperature 30 to 31 degrees centigrade, depending on exactly where you are on the circuit. So therefore, not too hot for front tyre degradation to really be exacerbated, particularly for our Lancia drivers, but not too cold as to make this circuit not offer enough grip. It's right in the Goldilocks zone, if you will, albeit we have also got where it's quite light winds as well. Only 5 miles an hour today compared to more aggressive winds we saw particularly last time out in Canada, where we were pushing upwards of 15 to 16 miles an hour at certain corners, and we saw the trees really moving back and forth there. But right now the trees are not moving back and forth today, and it is still Kurt Smith who holds onto his second place in the Deltas ahead of Clavio and Hidalgo. But from them, back to your leaders. And, well, Melior here under increasing threat. Wojciech Swierdijk looking for a move at some point. And, well, as they come through what is the S's sequence here, I would not want to be in the shoes of our leader right now. He's doing a very good job of not succumbing to the pressure. But when you do have the menacing headlights there of the Honda of your rival behind, and particularly when they're getting within 2 tenths through the corners, to be clear, through them, not before them, and that shows you how well Swierdijk can stay with the lead as they come through the hairpin so close there to the rear camera. That's the Constantino effect, of course. Well, right now for Mayer, well, the fact he's holding off this pressure right now, that is the sign of why he's one of our alphas out there. He really does have that experience and that composure that others would dream to have. But as we head back to Zach Hidalgo, taking a cheeky peek up the inside there of Evan Clavio. And, well, for Evan Clavio, this has definitely been a good turnaround of fortune after a good qualifying session, starting 6th in the Delta class, and, well, now up into 3rd, and hoping that he can perhaps even push a little bit further. Can he bring home the podium that he lost out on in race number 1 at Mosport? That's what we're going for. But into the pits comes Jared Cowlins. He releases the Delta lead, and as he makes one down, Cowlins needs a good stop here, and if he can make the stop work, he may just be able to return to leading ways come the end of the race. Of course, a lot of drivers still staying out here, so there's question marks on strategy. There's plenty of question marks on strategy as we do look to Zachary Bowman, yet to pit, chasing after JB Dejoux. Both of these drivers, of course, starting further down the order, and both continuing to have some fun and fighting away onwards. And right now, your Pennzoil Super Touring machine, the 654, making its way on around there. And indeed, every time I look at the liveries from Pennzoil Super Touring, I really do get flashbacks to NASCAR. And it's wonderful liveries on the cars, it must be said. That is not to their discredit. They really have captured what is that true American livery theme from the NASCAR scene. But as he makes his way on down, well, right now, Bowman looking up the inside there of JB Dejoux. I don't think Dejoux's going to fight this too hard because they are in 2 different classes, and whilst overall points are on the line, well, understandably, what's the point fighting a driver in another class when you perhaps work with them to gain some ground? Corey Lobner, meanwhile, he does not have that luxury of Austin Dunbar behind him. And Austin here enjoying a happy day in the office so far, almost inside the top 10 of the Deltas on the road, pushing onwards there in the very colourful liveried Audi RS3 LMS, where one side, of course, all in black, the other side, of course, all in aqua and black. The camouflage on one side, the split livery. Split livery is definitely a wonderful thing, and I do wish we saw more of them in real-life motorsport because they are iconic. As he comes on down there in towards turn number 4, back to Logan McKinzie we go. And whilst we could dwell on liveries for a time, well, he's got John Lauzon still with him, and it's crazy to think that these two still nose to tail together. They have lost Raymond Hugh to a degree, and I think Lauzon right now would like to clear McKinzie if he can. Keep in mind, of course, that Shepka has pitted from the front of the Gamma field, so Shepka is the absentee in this group, and we're waiting to see where the pit stops will put them all together. But as Lauzon makes his way around out that final corner, meanwhile, Jason Lynn has just found his way past Nicholas Sudik on the X's, the S's, and coming in towards turn number 12. Lynn right now, the official photographer of the series, will come through that right-hander of turn at number 12. Sudik there, I think, not fighting back too hard in his Honda. And both these drivers right now are just trying to edge their way towards their one and only pit stop. But what would you do here in terms of that tyre change? Do you just change the one or do you change multiple? Now, of course, one of the themes is that you change tyres on the same side of the car to balance out the wear rates of the car, and also it means you have a cold patch on one side of the car, not on one end of the car. But given the fact the tyre degradation on these machines is typically allocated to the front wheels rather than the rear wheels, I suspect it's either going to be one tyre change or it may be, will be 2, but it will be both of the fronts, but that will cost pace early on. But as we come back to Kurt Smith, your leader in the Delta class right now, under pressure from Evan Clavio here, coming down towards turn number 4. So Clavio looking for the move. He's been building up to this for the last 6 or 7 laps, and one under braking here, on the inside of SRG, and indeed, in the end, he's going to get that done nice and early, as Smith has no counter-attack there. I thought he was going to go for the switchback, but not quite. Clavio got it done. We ride on board now from your new Delta leader, looking back over the rear lip of the car, and the 187 now starting to pull away in this Hyundai Elantra, albeit Smith there falling back a little bit, and Hidalgo queuing up. James Carr is at the back of this group, the second of the breakfast dinner cars in your picture, and as they make the way through the SS sequence right now, is Smith perhaps struggling with tyre degradation at this point? Because it didn't look quite happy, the car, going through 4 into 5, or is it here that he's just playing the game of fuel saving now and wanting Clavio to do the hard work for him? We've still got 19 minutes left on the clock. There's a long way still to go in this race, and we've still got the question of strategy here and how long drivers will spend in the pits. But you can definitely see Smith now coming back. I don't think it's tyre struggles. I think it is. Smith is now just trying to be tactical and perhaps deciding to save a little bit of fuel and also make sure he doesn't push too hard as that's going to go round. Contact between Smith and Darko, and suddenly Smith, whatever he was planning, the plans of mice and men always are led astray, and the staying there for Kurt Smith today, it's all gone backwards. But he tries to get himself turned around in the arena as James Carr comes into the... Oh my good lord! There's contact into the pit lane there. Hidalgo wanted to come in. That was contact with Ronald Meffo there. He is thrown back out onto the circuit. And well, I'd get a replay of that when we can. But drama here as we head into the final 20 minutes. And Hidalgo right now has to do another lap. And look at the time he's lost. Evan Clavio 4 seconds up the road already. And here comes Chris McDonald. Hidalgo was looking to have a dream result today. Well, suddenly right now, it's all turned into the stuff of nightmares. As McDonald up the inside here. And he'll be thinking to this right now, rubbing his hands together and figured out how difficult it has been since the start of the race. You can see it by the fact he's got a lot of front bumper damage on the car, and right now, well, the number 85 driver here will be hoping that it continues, and if the bad luck starts to strike his rivals rather than himself, he may just be able to steal away a huge result, but we'll have to wait and see. There's also been some difficulty down the pit lane for some other drivers as well, as JB DeJoux carries on. He's not having any difficulty following Zachary Bowman, and Damon Mitchell a little bit further up the order right now, having started from the pit lane. Well, of course, he does have to make at least one trip to the pit lane in order to take all the fuel to get him to the end and that tyre change, but right now at least, well, the Audi RS3 driver here continuing to make progress and not any regress. But let's address what exactly happened only months ago, ladies and gentlemen. That was some huge drama we saw at the stadium through to what was the end of the lap and the pit lane. And here we go back in time to find out what exactly happened to Kurt Smith and Zach Hidalgo. So this was the drivers battling their way in towards the stadium. Now, as they made the way under braking here, Hidalgo was close, but not close enough to really think about the move. And then I think it was just on the outside there of the corner exit. Smith went a little bit deep, and Hidalgo just had a slight bit of overlap there with his front bumper, and that's what sent Smith around. But then there was this. Coming into the pit lane, where it was a brilliant run there from Meffo, who capitalised on the chaos in front. And I don't think Hidalgo expected Meffo to be there. Can we get the onboard from Ronald Meffo? I think we might be able to. Here we go back in time. Now, this was Ronald Meffo. He's a bit further back in this sequence, so he's going to see very shortly. They're all looking fine. Then Hidalgo just tapping the rear left quarter panel of what was there, Smith, and that backs everyone up. It checks them all up. Meffo here at this point thinks, right, I've got to now move, but also I want to come into the pits. But there, he can't cut back, and he now puts himself in the middle of the road, but he wants to actually come into the pit lane and gets caught up there. In fact, did he actually get caught up? Did Hidalgo want to come into the pits? That's so difficult to understand, that one, and we can't join it for too long. We've got plenty more racing to go, but there's so many stories entwined into that one, and well, back to live pictures we go. And as we do, well, we look to the exterior view there for Damon Mitchell, but the point being made there, ladies and gentlemen, was Meffo planning to come into the pits? I'm not sure he was. Some would say he was with the angle of the car. Some would say he wanted that inside line to get past Hidalgo. I think Zach Hidalgo did want to come into the pits, and that's where the problems arose there. But of course, after everything that happened in the arena, it happened so fast, and I think for all the drivers there, it'll be so interesting to understand. Unfortunately, we can't talk to them at the end of today's broadcast, but it'd be so good to understand what was the plan for everybody there, and then as a result, what ended up happening, because it did look as though suddenly, well, Meffo came through so quickly, and we're not quite sure if he wanted to be in the pits or not, but he has been forced to come into the pit. He will now take that pit stop whether he wanted to or not. He'll get it out the way, but I wonder if that will just upset his strategy a little bit. And of course, it has bought Evan Clavio some space, but also it all works in the hands of Jared Calnins. Now, we've still got 15 minutes to go. We still do have, of course, plenty of opportunity here with regards to our drivers and needing to try and make up those places. We look to your leaders, and right now Matthew Mayer under pressure. That's going to be up the inside for Wojciech Swierdowicz, and well, right now Swierdowicz going all in, but it's not enough under braking. Mayer just holds on for a little bit longer, as we do see there Matt Shepka, the Sia car, a long way back. And in fact, Shepka being lapped now by the leaders. I wonder he's had some woes in the pit lane. Because in fact, as we double check his pit stop time, 1.5 minutes stationary. Something went very wrong in the pit lane for Shepka. Not quite sure what, but it's not been his day, and that Gamma win is going away from him as me. Whoa, that was a look up the inside there. And well, for Wojciech Swierdowicz, surely we're not going to be robbed of a battle for the win with Swierdowicz having a technical issue right under braking there. I think we are, ladies and gentlemen. We've lost Swierdijk. Hopefully he comes back soon. Otherwise, that's a technical issue there for Swierdijk, right just as things were getting golden. And, well, unfortunately, that's not golden there. That's been spoiled rotten, that battle. But that's the way it goes sometimes. And unfortunately for Swierdijk, a technical issue just as he's about to look for the lead move on Mayer right now. And Matthew Mayer right now will be breathing the biggest sigh of relief, but also he won't want things to go that way necessarily. Nobody wants the battle to be ended by a technical retirement for their rival, but it happens in motorsport, and it does happen in the simulator as well. But it looks like Swierdijk is out of this race, and now Mayer with a 6.7 second gap to this man, Michael Polasek. It might be a bit more straightforward, but of course, anything can happen before it's all said and done. So do not rule it out yet. Do not assume that Matthew Mayer has guaranteed himself the win with Swierdijk's technical issues, because at any moment, one small mistake, alternatively, a change of strategy, and it could all be blown right back open. And Michael Polasek has demonstrated that time and time again this season. Even when he's in second, you can never rule him out of that win, no matter how far back he is. But as time goes on, a new twist in the tail then. It does mean, of course, as our Gamma drives carrying through, third place at the moment overall, Raymond Tiu. Well, understandably for him at the moment, all he needs to try and do now is keep his head down, because we would believe, given Shepka's difficulties in the pit lane, that Tiu is now your effective strategic leader in the Gamma class. The highest placed Gamma driver who has taken his one pit stop is James Carr, all the way down in 20th place. And, well, not to be unfair to him, he was nowhere near close to these guys when he did pit, so the theory would be he's not expected to be near them when they pit. But, of course, they may take longer pit stops. They may change an extra tyre. That always costs extra time in the pit lane. Remember, it is 7 seconds a tyre. Therefore, you can imagine it's 28 seconds in total to do all the tyres. In terms of fuel going into the car, it does go in simultaneously, I do believe. So, therefore, the shortest pit stop you can have, if you do enough fuel saving, is around 7 to 8 seconds stationary time. The longest pit stop you can have is in the region of 30 seconds if you change all 4 tyres. Although we'd expect drivers not to change any more than 2 tyres here today. And as we do see Jared Cowlins, meanwhile, with pressure on Corey Lobner, well, Cowlins making another place here. He knows he's got to do these places on circuit, given the fact that Lobner has yet to pit, and Cowlins now up into 5th place in the Delta class. And, well, as he makes his way down that start finish straight, next target, JB Dejoux, and then it's a little bit of time where you'll get to the Gamma drivers, Zachary Bowman and Nicholas Sudik. But Jared Cowlins, having pitted early, has got all the hard work to do here. He needs to pick up those places one by one if nobody comes into the pit lane in front of him initially. And, well, it's not the nicest place to be, of course. You want them all to get out of the way as quickly as you can, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. As meanwhile, that's Zachary Leopold up the inside of Mitchell Richmeyer, and here comes Evan Clavio having pitted. Well, Clavio right now, 90's got to get in that place of a Richmeyer, and he takes it straight away. So Clavio right now, the man who was leading in Delta before he came into the pit lane on the road, but he is behind Jared Cowlins. That's the important fact. So Cowlins at the moment is the leading Delta driver on strategy as we bring up the pit stops on your timing tower, ladies and gentlemen. So that way you've got an understanding of who's where at the moment, although we won't keep it there for too long because it does take up a lot of real estate on screen. But that is where they all sit at the moment in terms of those pit stops, and what really is currently your top 15 who have yet to take their pit stops by comparison. Excuse Damon Mitchell there, he has not pitted. That is a glitch there with regards to how he started from the pit lane. So your top 15 are the ones still yet to pit. More still to come in this race, and as we do look to none other than Matthew Mayer as he comes on down, well, Michael Polasek has taken half a second out of him on the previous lap. So Polasek right now still on a mission. You can see Polasek in the rear of the picture, and then you've got this battling going on further back. That is Carl Flannery trying to look for a move on Shepka, but Shepka drafting his way on past, and just in front is Jalen Kuo, and all these drivers now running to the end of the race on strategy. They've all pitted, they've all got the job done. But speaking of getting the job done in the pit lane, Francois Schenk heading down at the start for the straight pit lane now, and indeed he's taken that one stop. Where's he going to come on out? As the Kasudik has just made his way into his pit box. Damon Mitchell right now makes his way on past there, briefly saw him, but Francois Schenk emerges in 12th, and that does mean that Francois Schenk now is the highest placed driver who has pitted. Then the next is Jared Cowlins. So we're now starting to get an idea of where they're all fitting together, albeit it should be said that Jared Cowlins, a 25.5 second stop versus what was 24.5 seconds for Shinks. That will be fuel saving that's made the difference there potentially in terms of static stop. Meanwhile, James Carr, we had a very quick stop, albeit as he makes his way on down. That was on lap number 14, and we're only 7 seconds. So Carr's only changed literally the one tyre, and understandably, I would suspect the fact that right now tyre degradation will become an increasingly important factor for him, as Zachary Leopold's not too far behind. Running in 7th is Audi RS3, and Leopold having a much longer stop to the tune of 25 seconds. But I think that will have involved multiple tyres being changed by comparison to give himself the better grip. But of course, track position here can be highly valuable. if you've got the confidence that you can make yourself 2 or 3 cars wide on a corner, and meanwhile on the straights, you've got the speed just to blast away, or at least hold your ground. But into the pits comes Raven to you as John Lauzon stays out. So Beaver and D split their strategies, and right now Lauzon heading on to his next lap. He will lead at least 1 lap of the race in the Gamma class, and Mike Almeida does the same. He stays out as well. So therefore, right now, Beaver and D's, I think, splitting strategies here to guarantee at least one of their drivers is going to win this race, but we will see which one of them is going to be, as Mike Almeida, meanwhile, wants to try and be a thorn in the side if he can, but right now, being the best part of 6.5 seconds back, what can he exactly do to achieve that? Well, we'll have to wait and find out, as meanwhile, Jerry Kelnin's making another move, and now ahead of JB Dejoux, up into 4th place in Delta. Dejoux yet to pit as well. He's going as long as he possibly can. I think several Delta drivers here are going with the philosophy, if I go the longest of everybody, then I can simply stay out of trouble, but in the end, he does have to come in the number 621. The Atlanta drive there doing a very good opening stint to move all the way into the top 5, and now we'll see where this brings him back out. Corey Lobner's going to come and pass, so is Tyler Long. And Long right now still trying to make some headway here, chasing after Lobner. Lobner has yet to pit as we understand it, although we're not 100% certain on that. As Long makes his way on down. Coming down towards turn 1 here. He's almost on course for a top 5 in the Delta class today, albeit given the fact that Chris Badoldi is up there at the moment, and also the fact that Evan Clavio is ahead of him, it is still looking to be a day. In fact, no, he's not ahead of him. Let me correct myself there. Clavio has come out behind Long as a result of the pit stops, so that's been a reversal there. Not too far between the two drivers, and Clavio has lost out on the pit strategy, so Long has actually found some pace as this race has gone on, and he's had the quicker pit stop by the best part of 2-3 seconds. So now it's going to be Ty Long who may be actually regaining some ground and some momentum in the championship. But Long all over the back of Lobner. This is going to cost him some time as they make the way through turns 4, 5 and 6, and we're looking back from the rear of your 41 Lobner, the privateer and the CFR machine, and we'll come through the double right apex of turn number 6 now. Lobner really under pressure. He doesn't have to give up the spot, to be fair. He can choose to fight it if he so desires. I think he will, as Long gets it close, but into these S's, there's going to be no way in at the end. But we can see behind is James Carr, 2.2 seconds and closing quickly. Then Leopold, then Clavio. They are coming as a group, as Long there having a bit of a moment coming through the first part of the S, a little bit of oversteer, and now gets himself together as that's a cut on the track there for Corey Lobner. He may have just picked up a slowdown for taking a bit too much curve. What was the run through turn number 10? So he's got to be careful of that. Let's wait and see if he's got a server slowdown or whether he's got away with it. He may have got away with it, but in the meantime, definitely not a moment there that he wants to repeat if he affords it. In fact, he does burn his slowdown immediately there. We thought he might have had one, and he burns it in quite an unconventional way. I've never seen a driver do that, but actually Corey Lobner there just putting the brakes on, going to that runoff area there on the entrance turn 13. Well done to him for doing so. Meanwhile, Zach Hidaka right now pushing Mitchell Richmeyer through the stadium section. I think that's the best way to describe it. He looked to the move, couldn't get close enough to go up the inside, so then he said to him, could you politely get a move on? And as they make the way of through, Hidako still out there at the moment and carrying on his merry way. And well, both these drivers right now fighting hard for 8th place in the Delta class as they come down towards what will be turn number 1. It's a long run to go, and Hidako right now catching at the wrong points and lap, it would seem, as they get ready for the next tour of the circuit. But meanwhile, what's happening elsewhere is we've had a bit of an incident for Kyle Flannery, and well, we are going to get a replay of that very shortly, as well as a move by Joe Calnins on JB Dejoux. Here we go back in time, ladies and gentlemen, and give you some quick replays. So this was Jared Calnins chasing after JB Dejoux. Dejoux was due to come into the pits at the end of this lap either way, but Calnins looking up the inside in the end to move into that 5th place in the Delta class. In fact, the 4th place there, we should say. Lovely move, and to be fair, Dejoux did not just simply steer clear until the move was made. He tucked in quite quickly, so Calnins there was being given a bit of a hurry up from his rival. And then we had this unfortunately happen to Kyle Flannery only months later. And well, on a day where it was all a jump start that sent him back down to the back of the order, well, Kyle Flannery made his way in towards turn number 2, battling side by side there with Jalen Kuo. Contact there, just tapping Flannery around, and Kuo in the end, I think, realising what he's done, but at that point, no, he can't stop and wait because there's still cars coming on through. So, unfortunately, not the way Flannery's wanted it to go all day, but back to your live race to become, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do, was not too long left on the clock, 5 minutes if that. And as all these drivers right now see this race towards its natural conclusion, well, what is next? Well, we can see Matthew Bellior, your leader, Matthew Mayer, I should say. I'm definitely going to be picking that one up as a name that I'm going to get wrong more times than I'm going to get right. I do apologise, Matthew, when you watch this back later, if you are doing so. Well, as he makes his way on around right now, the number 12 driver here in control. And Michael Polasek, meanwhile, 7 seconds back. And Polasek, he has not been able to quite stay with him over the last couple of laps. The gap has actually started to grow to a degree as we've got a lot of pit lane activity now. A lot of drivers, I think, have got as long as they can. And well, there's Chris McDowell making his way on out. Tyler Long heads on past. And suddenly, was looking to be a race that was going very backwards to Tyler Long. Is now actually going very forward. He's up into second in the Delta class. The only driver between him and the win right now is Jared Cowlins. There is Cowlins. There's Long in the rear of the picture. So Tyler Long here has completely surprised everybody by making his way through. Evan Clavio is now up into third ahead of Chris McDonald, who's there behind. So the two drivers trying to chase down Tyler Long in the championship. This is going to completely shake them up because they'll be suddenly realising the fact that somehow, some way, Tyler Long has leapt ahead. And the only way he's done it, looking back at his lap times, Tyler Long, since his pit stop, he has been pumping in laps that have been race leading pace laps in terms of the Delta class. So Long has flicked a switch somewhere. He's refound that pace that we've expected from him that was missing at Mosport, and suddenly it's all come together. Meanwhile, into the pit lane, there's your leader of Mayer ahead of Polasek in the pits at least. Logan McKinsie's also in, headlights on full beam there as Corey Lobner leaves the pit lane, but he is effectively a lap down than the leaders almost as they all get serviced, and we're waiting to see exactly where they all come out. But Raymond, to you. In fact, the big question mark as he makes his way out of the stadium section underneath our blimp camera. And as he rolls around, he's looking to see if he can get back out ahead of his teammate John Lauzon and also Mike D'Almeida. As Michael Polasek leaves the pit lane first and foremost. He comes out ahead of Matthew Mayer. Mayer is still being serviced in the pit lane. You couldn't make this up. Mayer is still being serviced and he's not leaving. And right now, it's all gone so wrong. Polasek retakes the lead. Raymond Hughes down to second ahead of Logan McKinzie and John Lauzon. And then there's Micah Hendricks coming out in fifth, and Francois Schink's going to barrel past. Schink has leapt ahead of a whole host of them here. He's made his way from the bottom end of the top 10 up into fifth. Hendricks is sixth, and now it's D'Almeida in seventh, the third of the Gammas. Jared Cowlins is there, and then suddenly Matthew Mayer comes out, and Mayer is in 10th place. What has gone wrong? It's all gone wrong for the number 12 driver. I wonder whether they've changed all four tyres on that car, and alternatively, they've made a mistake with regards to the fuel of the car. But that being a 1 minute pit stop, that's the equivalent of what's gone wrong for Shepka in the pit lane, unless there's anything else to explain. But right now we've got no other explanation, and suddenly what was looking to be an absolutely glued on win here today for the CHG driver has completely been run away as he makes his way past Evan Clavio. Clavio there having a bit of a difficult run through the S of the result, and now Zachary Leopold's going to be with him as they get ready to head down to that braking zone. Leopold on the inside in the Formula Alarm machine. He's come through really well. In fact, Leopold into fourth in Gamma, 12 overall. Can he now take 11th over Clavio? They go too wide in, and Clavio defends it hard outside to inside, but does he overstep the boundary at turn 5? No, he doesn't, and then he will hold that place. A lovely bit of defensive driving there from none other than Evan Clavio, and Leopold right now wants to get him through, but look at Chris McDowell in the rear of the picture. Look at Hidako in the rear of the picture. They're all catching up, but nobody is catching this man in the championship here today, and neither is anybody catching this man at the very front of the field. Jared Cowlins right now is absolutely flying, and with a 5-second gap at the front of the Delta class, I think right now this could be it for him. We've got one more lap to go with a minute 20 left on the clock. We're going to get 24 laps at most, and right now for Jared Cowlins, if he does bring this on home, it is going to be, I do believe, his first win of the season in the Delta class, and what a win it's going to be. He will have earned this the hard way today on strategy, and also that brilliant race start. But meanwhile, we stay glued here to Carl versus Daniels, and John Daniels, who started from the back of the field, is coming through to 6th here if he can hold off James Carl for a couple more laps, albeit James Carl right now all over the back of him like a bad rash. And this race has been full of drama indeed. Mexico City always delivers, and right now we have seen how much is delivered here, whether it's been overly long pit stops for big names, alternatively technical retirements from race lead battlers such as Wojciech Swiatek, or we've just seen some absolutely crazy battling out on circuit where it's kept us guessing every step of the way. But right now all the guessing and all those answers are going to arrive within the next 30 seconds, and we'll have to see exactly what those final answers will be on this test of skill and determination for everybody involved. But Carl right now close. Can he find a way in here under braking? He looks for it for what will be turn number 1, but no way in at least now. Backs off there versus the TCR Racer Descent machine, and now coming from right into left here. He's going to ride the rear bumper. Is the breakfast for dinner driver as much as he possibly can. This is the closest battle on circuit. We're going to stay with it for a bit longer, although there is a growing battle between Heath and Trost. We're coming down the hill towards what will be turn number 4, and this car does so here, looking to the outside, and well, Daniels is never going to give him the space to the inside there. He knows he doesn't want to lose it. All he's got to do surely now is get around that outside. Can he do so? Yes, he can. He gets a nose in. It's turn 5, and Carl gets ahead there. lovely bit of work from James Carr. And now here comes Daniels back at the inside. He's looking for it. They're going to go too wide all the way through. But as they do, ladies and gents, we have to leave them there for a brief moment, because for Michael Polasek today, I don't think he's going to quite believe how it's happened. But for Polasek, it is another win here in round number 7 of the championship, ahead of Raymond Teo, who returns to winning ways in the Gamma class in second overall. Logan McKinzie third on the podium in the number 4, just ahead of runner-up. But it's a 1-2 for Beaver and D's in the Gamma class, because John Lauzon brings on home that second place. Then it will be Franz Osching who takes 5th from a huge strategic gamble working out ahead of Micah Hendricks. Mighty Almeida will complete the Gamma podium in 7th. And for Jared Cownins, it is the first win of the season. It all came down to the race start, and he delivered most. And Tyler Long comes home in 9th place. That's second place in Delta, knowing that his Delta Championship lead is now back in stability. Matthew Mayer comes home in 10th place, wondering what on earth happened in the pit lane, ahead of Evan Clavio, who rounds off the Delta podium in 11th. And it'll be Zachary Leopold ahead of Chris McDonald, with Zach Hidalgo, who could have been a Delta winner today, but it went wrong in the stadium in his battle midway through the race. Major Bonsai comes on home in 15th, just ahead of James Carr. We will get you a replay of the rest of that battle, ladies and gentlemen, shortly. He held off Jan Daniels in the end, with Damon Mitchell coming from the pit lane to finish in 18th, 8th in Gamma. What a drive from him. Kurt Smith's at 19th ahead of Jason Lynn, who rounded off the top 20. There was Nicholas Sudik, with Joseph Heath in the end getting the upper hand versus Carl Trost, the two separated by Zachary Bowman. And then Matt Shepka with a frustrating race day when it all seemed glued on for his first Gamma win of the season in the endurance races. But for Shepka, that long pit stop at the start, 1.5 minutes, it was so heartbreaking and crushing for him, ahead of Jamie Dejoux, and comes home 10th for the Deltas, 26th overall with some solid points. Head of third, Al Ridgely, who didn't quite have the ability to repeat his escapades from what was Mosport. And then we did see Austin Dunbar, Mitchell Richmeyer, and Jalen Kuo round off that top 30, with Corey Lobner being your last lead lap finisher there as they all come to line. But goodness me, what a race, ladies and gentlemen. And well, we need to take a look back at that battle right at the end between John Daniels and James Carr. And well, the great news is we can bring you that right now as we take a trip back in time. So this was the battle between the two drivers, and of course, coming across that timeline, it all began. And what was the run down towards turn number 1? It was John Daniels, who already had completed his pit stop, and meanwhile, James Carr then had to try and play catch up. But did he catch up? Yes, he most certainly did. And then the battle in between the two of them, it really started to build up, as here is how they laid out towards the very end. Of course, they battled their way down in towards turn number 4 on the final lap. Carr looking around the outside, and Daniels there defending hard to the inside, but that will put him on the outside, at which point Carr making sure to park the car nicely on the exit, but Daniels said, no, it's not over yet. And he looked up the inside into turn number 6, went all in, took all the apex curb, and in the end, door-to-door between these two, and Carr being given the elbow out. So what exactly happened after that? It was a run up towards turn number 7, and Carr on the inside here. He was never going to back out at this point. Too wide, they went into the S's, and at that point, John Daniels still kept it too wide going on in. Both drivers, they're giving each other as much racing respect as they deserve, and then through the remainder of the S's, that is where James Carr was able to get ahead and seal the deal to take what would be none other than that position, 6th in the end in the Gamma class, and 17th on the road. But that completed their race, ladies and gentlemen. What about between them? Indeed, what battles between all our drivers? And without further ado, let's make our way back to your live racing circuit side pictures and bring you those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, after an incredible round of racing here today at the absolutely wonderful Mexico Grand Prix circuit, well, those results, here they come up on screen, they were as follows. Starting off with none other than your overall finishing positions. And as we saw, Michael Polasek in the end taking that victory for Yellow Flag Motorsport. A brilliant win in the number 1 car. However, he will know as well that it was due to a mistake in the pit lane, it would seem, for Matthew Mayer and the CHG team that robbed him of the victory, and made sure that Polasek in the end didn't just finish second, but he did bring on home a win and extends his championship lead at the very top. The Yellow Flag Motorsport driver was 6.5 seconds ahead of Raymond Teo, with the Beaver and D's driver in the end taking home that second place, and with the Gamma victory there, he'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. Logan McKinzie bringing on home at third place there. What a drive for him. And the Pennzoil Super Touring driver once again really proving to be Mr. Consistent in the third place spots, ahead of John Lauzon, who rounded off his race, completing a 1-2 for the Beaver and D's team there, and he'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. Francois Schenk brought home at 5th place there for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, or the SIA team, and the Canadian driver there making sure to use strategy to move from 10th to 5th over the stage of the race, and what a solid performance from him. Micah Hendricks took 6th there for Croc Promotions, couldn't quite find a way to get back ahead of number 18 and finished the best part of 1.5 seconds behind, with Mike Dalmeda taking home at 3rd place in the Gamma class, but in the end, 7th on the overall road. The Yellow Flag Motorsports drive was then followed up by Jared Cownin's Delta winner today, his first Delta win of the season, and he did it with a very impressive race start and then made sure he didn't make a mistake in the race. But the priority was gradually being caught towards the end by Tyler Long, and well, if Tyler Long needed to prove to us all today and prove the doubters wrong that he can come through from adversity, he showed it, of course, all the way back at Charlotte in round number 2, and he showed it again today, suddenly finding pace midway through the race and coming through for a 2nd place finish for TCR Racers in Delta, 9th overall. Matthew Mayer in the end taking 10th with that dismal pit stop, ruining what was his chance of his first win in a race from lights to flag. However, the CHG driver, 9 he has won previously, and 9 there's still more races to come. He's got to have the confidence. Evan Clavio taking best the rest there in 11th place, but 3rd place in the Delta class. The sim racing grid driver in the end not quite having the pace to stay ahead along, given the way the strategy played out, but making sure he finished on the podium with him. Head of Zachary Leopold for Formula Llama, and Chris McDonald in the end missing out on the Delta podium, but 4th in class, and the Gator Racing driver knowing he's got to regroup ahead of the next one. What could it have been today for Zach Hodarko behind him in 14th place? Well, that's a big what-if question, but knowing that contacting him through the stadium section cost him so dearly, with Major Monservai completing the top 15, the privateer. It was then breakfast for dinners, James Carr in 16th place, battling hard to the very end with John Daniels in their lightning fast fight. The T0 Racing Summit driver, the loser, but still both of them winners. He presented us with some brilliant racing action, and it was a further 2 seconds back to Damon Mitchell, who came from the pit lane to Division 18th for Croc Promotions, ahead of breakfast for dinners Kurt Smith and Jason Lynn for Gator Racing. That completed your top 20, and outside the top 20, we did see in 21st, it was Nicholas Sudik, the privateer, ahead of Joseph Heath, with Zachary Bowman there taking 23rd for Pennzoil Super Touring, ahead of Carl Trost. Matt Shepka for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport lost out considerably right towards the start of the race with that early pit stop, and indeed a very long pit stop of that. Something went very wrong, and for the American driver, he's now got to pick himself back up, knowing that it wasn't the Gamma win today, but surely, sometime between now and the end of the season, we will see him on the top step of the podium. JB Dejoux was right behind him by 4 seconds, but ahead of Fred Hour Ridgely. Then we did see Austin Dunbar enjoying a very fighty race today, and the privateer having a good time out there, as did Mitchell Richmeyer for Monster Energy Racing. Your top 30 was completed by Jalen Kuo for Midpack Mafia. And your last lead lap finish was behind him of Corey Lobner to a 2nd, and then it was 3 laps down for Kevin Johnson, 4 laps down for Carl Flannery after his jump start that really set the tone of the day today for the Gasparilla Motorsport driver, and he'll be absolutely gutted at that, with Wojciech Swodowicz that technical retirement just as he was looking to try and make the move on Matthew Mayer for the win. Unfortunately there, for the Polish driver for breakfast or dinner, it all went wrong when it was looking to go so right. But motorsport giveth, motorsport taketh, and Lady Luck today definitely not on the number 80 driver's side. We then did see Ronald Meffel there for Gasparilla Motorsport, a lap down in the end, just ahead of Mark Donnell, albeit now we're coming into the realm of the early retirees, including Donnell, Gareth McAllister, Dan McFarlane, Angel Manila Soto, and Cooper Akers for that non-start. He rounded off the top for Uti, and also commiserations as well for a non-start for the debutant of Billed Van Beek, and hopefully we'll see the Kiwi out there on circuit next time, and hopefully we'll get to see him start and finish the race. In terms of the individual class finisher positions, well, of course, we will take a quick look at the Gamma finisher positions from today. It's quite significant here. We've got to see Raymond here in the end take home that win for Beaver and D's ahead of his teammate John Lauzon, a 1-2 between the pair, with Mike Dalmeda in 3rd place there for Yellow Flag Motorsport. Zachary Leopold in the end coming on through for that 4th place, but again, after the contact right at the start of the race, I think he'll be grateful to have seen what would have been the top 5. He probably was thinking to himself it wouldn't even be a top 10, but he was ahead of Major Monservai in the end by 10 seconds. Outside the top 5 was James Carr ahead of John Daniels in that absolutely brilliant fight for 6th, ahead of Damon Mitchell, with Nicholas Sudik and Zachary Bowman completing the top 10, and behind the Pennzoil Super Touring driver, it was none other. And what was there? Matt Shepka in 11th place, best the rest, ahead of the retirees of Dan McFarlane and the non-starter of Cooper Akers. From the Pennzoil Super Touring drivers' dismay, we then came to the glory of what was your class winner in the Delta class of Jared Cownins. A brilliant drive to victory there, and one that will be highly memorable for all the right reasons. Tyler Long for T0 Racing Ascent then make his way back onto the podium. He'll be absolutely ecstatic at that. Wondering now where he can go next. Can he go back to winning ways next time out? Evan Clavio there just missing out on strategy today for Sim Racing Grid, but it was a swing in the end of 6 seconds, and Tai Long was the one who was the beneficiary of it. Chris McDonald took 4th place there for Gator Racing ahead of Zach Hidalgo, only 8 tenths between the two of them at the line, with Hidalgo there definitely putting on an impressive display of pace today, and he's got to carry that momentum forward into the United Kingdom next round. Kurt Smith took 6th ahead of Jason Lynn, with Joseph Heath, Carl Trost and JB DeJoux completing that top 10, and then a third hour originally best of the rest in 11th. Not quite able to do what he could do in Canada, but to be fair, it did seem as though today the switch to the Honda and this Mexico Grand Prix circuit, not the perfect combination. He needs a bit more time. Austin Dunbar took 12th place there ahead of Mitchell Richmeyer, with Jalen Kurt and Corey Lobner completing the Delta top 15, and then we did see what was outside the top 15 3 laps down, Kevin Johnson, but good to see him out there having fun on circuit. He was a lap ahead of Carl Flannery, and it was Ronald Meffo, Mark Darnell and Gareth McAllister of your retirees who completed the top 20. And the theme of difficulties continued for Angel Bill and Lesotho, and also a non-start for Belay Van Beek. With that, ladies and gents, that concludes our rundown of the finishing positions subject to any stewards' inquiries. And with that, sadly, it does mean we now need to pack up our bags, because it's time to leave the Mexico City Grand Prix circuit, and it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now thinking to yourself, how can I get on the grid for the Alpha Touring Challenge, or how can I get to know more or join the community and really get behind one of the premier touring car racing series in the globe, and indeed perhaps the #1 series in the US of A and the North American time zones? Well, for all that and more, we do recommend you go to our official website, and that is at alphatouringchallenge.com. And when you do, it is the beating heart, it is the true Wikipedia of this series, because you have all the latest news articles on screen there. You have all the Hall of Famers and all the previous champions on the right hand side. And if you want to know even more about the current season, all the broadcasts that we've got all the way back since the very start of the Alpha Touring Challenge 5+ years ago, and the history, the Hall of Famers, all of that information is available right on this website. And also access to the official Discord where you can join the racing community. But with that as well, we'd like to say a big thank you to our series partners, who do include, of course, Syncmesh first and foremost, who born out of the pursuit of one man's search for better gear for sim racing. Syncmesh is the company which provides purpose-built gear for sim racing, ranging from gloves through to a full line of performance wear. With an obsessive attention to detail in their gear, which aligns with your attention to detail in nailing lap after lap on the simulator, you could not ask for better gear to make your sim racing experience better. And if you'd like to know more, why not head to Syncmesh's website today at sync-mesh.com. We'd also like to say a big thank you to Glass and Steel Photography and Design as well, because the ATC's official photographer, Jason In, who you've seen on the grid today enjoying scrapping it with his Delta rivals, is a highly talented and approachable individual who provides both photography and livery design services for the iRacing simulator platform as part of Glass and Steel Photography and Design. But do not just take our word for it, with 5-star reviews from his clientele citing him as easy to work with, detail-orientated, and a very fast responder. If you're looking for pixel-precise photography or a livery design to dominate the competition, then why not head to his website at glassnsteel1.wordpress.com today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today. But where are we next? Well, next time out, it's round number 8, our final sprint race round of the season, and we'll be making our way to the northwestern heart of motorsport in the United Kingdom, because it is going to be the Alton Park circuit that plays host, of course, a staple of the British Touring Car Championship calendar, as well as TCR UK. What exactly will lie in the Cheshire countryside for our drivers in a week's time? Well, we'll find out then, because all the racing will be on Monday the 23rd of February, but we'll invite you to come join us if it were live on Tuesday the 24th of February. And leaving today, well, Michael Polasek right now, a little bit of luck on his side, has continued to extend his championship lead where others have wallowed in his wake. Meanwhile, in the Gamma class, Beaver and Dees have made it a 1-2, and Raymond Tew will have extended his lead to a degree over Dan McFarlane. And meanwhile, in the Delta class, Tyler Long has proven the doubters wrong, but can he keep up this momentum, knowing that Evan Clavio and Chris McDonald are never too far behind? However, they might need to be aware of the fact that we're seeing new drivers come to the top step of the podium at each and every round, including Jared Cowlins today. How will the story continue at Alton Park? We'll tune in next time to find out, but until then, we have been the Alpha Touring Challenge, and I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been catching a Paul Walsh production. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.